Sup, Jan? Sup, Ken? Happy Saturday and happy Diwali if you guys celebrate it, or if you guys have any Hindu friends. Well, it's Saturday here, Jan. But I actually had a lot of rackets to string. And today was kind of a busy day for me. So I was up at 9. Got done with tennis stuff at around 3. 8, took a nap, woke up, strung some tennis rackets. Realized I could probably do a stream today because I still have 3 more rackets to string. One of them being a friend of mine that I connected with because he saw me on YouTube, and he actually lives in the Metro Milwaukee area, and he's a damn good tennis player. And then the other 2 are the RPM Blast, which I'm playtesting starting tomorrow, and then the RPM Blast Rough, which I'm playtesting tomorrow as well. I'm kind of doing them both hand in hand. Yeah. Hey, happy birthday to your daughter. Is she gonna at least start playing tennis? And don't mind if I drink a little bit. It's Saturday, so what we do in Wisconsin. Yeah, he actually uses the racket I used to use before I switched to the E-Zone, the Yonex E-Zone 98 2020 version. Well, yeah, I mean, oh, here's a more important question, Jan. Is your daughter a lefty or a righty? Jan, that's awesome. That's awesome that you have a daughter and a son about a year off from each other. So hopefully they'll play tennis together and they have hitting partners. So in all honesty, like I know the world's kind of crazy right now with the pandemic and 2020 overall being kind of a weird year. But I would suggest, even if you can't find like a tennis court, and I've seen enough quick start to comment on this somewhat confidently. Just have them have like happy thoughts and happy feelings every time that there's a racket in their hand. So even if you're just hitting in the basement, and I think I was the one that was telling you about kind of the basement drills that you could have if it's like a low ceiling. Just be overly positive with them when it comes to them just holding up the racket or even thinking of tennis. That's my best approach to it, at least from a quick start age. Yeah, try to have both of them be lefties. Like, try to really positively enforce every time they reach for like the racket with their left hand. Because even though it might be hard at first, being a lefty in any sport, not just American sports, any sport, is a huge advantage at above the adolescent years, I would say. Hey Tim, what's up? Qualify for the Midwest Championships. Unfortunately, that time for at least 2020, it's passed. You have to go through state, and that happened, I think, in early October. For me, let's see. I think the tournament for state, because you have to go through state and then sectionals / regionals, and then eventually you get to nationals. State, unfortunately, already happened in, I think, late September, early October to qualify. But what state do you live in, Tim? Yeah, Ken. The Phantom 1P is pretty. It's old school Prince. It's pretty damn good. I would it's a damn good racket, and the only knock I would have on the Prince Phantom 100P or any of those like classically remade Prince rackets is they seem pretty fragile, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it's flexible enough. It's got a thin beam, but it's careful if you ever get angry and you already just like toss your racket. There might be an internal crack or even an external crack throughout of it. Oh, Tim. So I grew up in Rolling Meadows, Illinois. Can I ask what suburbs you play tennis out of? Rolling Meadows is the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so that's like Buffalo Grove, Arlington Heights, and Barrington, Illinois. Yeah, it's mainly due to COVID. I'll bring up the website in a second. I'll show you what Wisconsin State looks like. And Fly Guy, what's up, man? Let's see, my favorite shot. Huh. That's a good one. It's kind of a commonly asked question, but I would say that my favorite shot for me to hit in tennis is my one-handed backhand down the line. There's nothing better feeling than if you're in a rally and your opponent hits it just a little bit short to your backhand wing and you just crank it down the line for a winner. It's a pretty satisfying feeling, man. Yeah, Daniel M. I could show you that. Obviously, I'm streaming right now. I could show you that in a bit. So stay tuned a little bit. I promise you I'll show you. Now that you know what city I live in, you guys are gonna send death threats to me? Okay, so it's not September. Okay. It had to be in October sometime. Okay. So, Tim, right? So this is what the Wisconsin League Championships was in 2020. And it was held in Racine. And let's see. For me, like the 4-5, there was only one other competitor, so we both automatically qualified because the top two players, the people that make it to the finals, qualify for sectional/regionals. So we didn't have to play. So I'll send you this one. I don't know. I don't know what it's looking like for Illinois, to be honest. So that's something that you're gonna have to research your own. But this is the Wisconsin one for 2020. Fly Guy, I had a two-handed backhand from, let's see. So I started playing tennis when I was, what's third grade? Is that 9 or 10 years old? So ever since I was 9, I had a two-handed backhand. And then I switched to a one-hander when I was 19. So 10 years down the line. And I haven't looked back since. I absolutely love the one-e. It's not only like, is it better for my game? Given that, given how much racket head speed I need and how much I put behind the ball, and how right hand dominant I am on my ground strokes and my tennis game in general, but it's made me a much better tennis player. So I'm very happy I switched to a one-hander. Yeah, Tim, I'm glad. I'm definitely glad I could help. I'm here for you, man. Hey, maybe in 2021, you and I could grab a beer sometime in Nationals if this whole pandemic thing kind of blows over. Hello? Oh, man. Everybody, the great Ian from Essential Tennis is in the chat. Say hi to him. Daniel M. That's a good question because I actually have had a lot of questions like that. So, that dialogue that you see me externally voice out at 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 Essential, this the stuff that you hear me voice out at Essential Tennis. I obviously normally don't do that in like a regular like USTA tennis match, both tournaments and state league. That's the stuff that kind of goes on in my head, and obviously, for content's sake, let's say, I externalize those thoughts. Obviously, I filter it a little bit, because you have to filter things, otherwise, Ian wouldn't have any content. Ian from Essential Tennis would not have any content whatsoever for him to post on YouTube. Um, but it does go on in my head, but I don't act that externally in a tournament or a state league match. That is a very good question, though. Ken Harris, my favorite tennis balls are for teaching and for both playing are the Roger Federer Wilson balls, and those are a little bit expensive. But for the most price worthy, more price sensitive people, the Wilson U.S. Open Extra Duty are fantastic tennis balls. Do not buy Dunlop tennis balls. I've had a very bad experience with them in the past. And definitely don't buy anything Penn unless it's Pro Penn Tour ATP. Those are really good tennis balls from Penn. David Gonzalez, I personally wear, uh, what is it called? It's a compression shorts. That's the underwear I wear. Tim Morrow, correct. That state thing, from Illinois is the very first thing that you have to go through before you go to sectional/regionals, and then if you do well in sectional/regionals, I believe you do qualify for the for national championships. Yeah, Bokai Chow. I'm surprised. Essential Tennis has dropped by. That's quite an honor. And to be honest, like every like I've had how do I phrase this correctly? Hold on, the my audio is kind of broken a little bit. One second. Wilson Trinities, they're okay, but it's it's a different feeling coming off your racket. Not gonna lie, like the idea of Wilson having like a forever kind of tennis ball with a compression, it's a good idea. I don't mind the higher price point given what marketing they put out to be and like what they claim to be, but it's different. if I were to ever show up to a tournament and they use the Wilson Trinity balls as like the actual tournament tennis balls, I would walk out because they're not the same. I like the idea, but they need to execute. Wilson as a company needs to execute on that idea a little bit better. I like the ambition, but it's not a normal tennis ball in my opinion. Oh, trust me, everybody in the world wants Ian to get back on the court soon. I still find myself having a lot of guilt every time I replay that one point in our tennis match, Ian, where that unfortunate incident did happen. The RPM Blast, Saifuddin Mohammed. I'm actually gonna string the RPM Blast after this racket. Not just the RPM Blast, but also the RPM Blast Rough. So I'm gonna kind of compare them kind of side by side. So expect that tennis string review to be out by Wednesday or Thursday, I would say. Because, you know, obviously I want to play test both of them at about at least 5 hours of straight hitting each, to give you guys, the consumers, you know, my honest opinion on them. But I definitely appreciate Essential Tennis and what Ian has done, because like you guys have to understand that when it comes to, and I talked about this with Ian before we actually started playing our match, but Essential Tennis is the most successful tennis coaching program in the world when it comes to the metrics of YouTube. Now, you and I can argue all day about like, hey, what are the metrics of, you know, being the most successful tennis coach? People say, hey, how many Grand Slams have your students won, or you know, how many state championships have your students won? But I would argue that's not the metric to measure the most successful tennis coach. Based on the likes, his subscriptions, and his overall viewability, Essential Tennis is the most successful tennis program of all time. And that comes, if you agree with my metrics, objectivity. It's not subjective at all. That's pure numbers right there. Thanks, Essential Tennis. Maybe. My tennis background, my playing background, Fly Guy. So I was a nationally ranked junior in the 10 and 12 and unders, just because I was quick and I had pretty good hand-eye coordination and I had pretty good instincts. And then when everybody started hitting puberty, I was seeing serves and pace that I've never seen before. Because going into high school as a freshman, I was 4'9" and maybe 80 or 85 pounds. So I was a small guy, and to an extent, I still am small for my given my tennis caliber apparently. But it's one of those things where I kind of burned out, and I love my mom and my dad, but they put a little too much pressure on me. So I kind of burned out a little bit between the ages of 14 and I would argue up until 23 or 24. So I just went through the motions for those 10 years, and then some things happened in my life that I'm not going to get into, but some personal things happened in my life where I use tennis as kind of like an outlet of those negative emotions. And that's when I started to become a better and better tennis player, and because of that, apparently, I started to become a better and better tennis coach. Which I'm more happy that I become a better tennis coach more than a better tennis player, because I could start influencing positively the people around me, whether it's adults or quick start kids or juniors. So tennis, even though I am a software engineer as my full-time job, it's been tennis is my passion. There's no secret behind it. You know, look at the time I'm putting on YouTube. Look at the time that I'm helping with Essential Tennis, which I'm very helpful and I'm very grateful that I'm doing. it's one of those things where, like, you know, after my um 40-hour week, you know, programming at this desk, because I'm working from home given the current pandemic, I want to be on the tennis court. I actually love editing. I love videotaping and editing these match play things I put on my my content. I love you know, really criticizing tennis string companies and manufacturers about what's best for the consumer. I love that stuff. So this whole tennis idea is like, yeah, it's my passion. I love it. Trinity, in Gold Weather DeRosa 67, I don't know, because if it gets too cold outside, I start playing indoors. So I have no idea what that is. DeRosa 67, can I ask you, what's your definition of cold weather? Because as soon as it hits like 50 degrees Fahrenheit in where I live, I just go straight indoors. I don't want to hurt my elbow. Hey Sierra, how you doing, man? I hope you're having a good one too. Cheers. OG, that's a good question. That is a business question. And that is absolutely a fair question, because I am a business guy. I have an undergrad in business finance. So what I personally believe separates my YouTube channel from the others that have let's talk about tennis string reviews, right? Because obviously Ian is killing it with Essential Tennis. I'm not stepping on his toes. I want to help him out best I can. But for other tennis string review channels, what I personally believe separates me from other tennis string review channels, I'm not going to mention it here, but there's other ones out there that do a very good job, is that one, I am a high-level tennis player, hovering around the 4.5, 5.0, and apparently I've had comments that I might be a 5.5, which is a little out there, but thanks for the compliment. One, I'm a high-level tennis player at that caliber. Two, I'm not in this for the money. I'm not. I'm a programmer. Money is not exactly an issue for me. And number three, like number three is probably the greatest thing out of all the points that I talked about. I'm doing this from a consumer perspective. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've played with RPM Blast before. It's a fantastic string. But is it really worth, what, $20 a packet? That's kind of how I approach all of my tennis string reviews and basically everything else, because even if you take a look at my vlogs that are centered around tennis drills, I never have ever said you need to have a coach and you need to pay that coach $100 an hour at your local tennis club in order to become a better tennis player. No, that's not. Do stuff that Essential Tennis is telling you to do, because 95% of this content is free and you can view it on YouTube anytime. All you really need is like one hitting partner to be able to execute on those type of drills and to work on those things. So that's kind of my approach, and that's where my YouTube channel is going. Obviously, the more the merrier. There are some projects that I'm not going to talk about that are going to enhance on those things. That's definitely going to benefit you guys as consumers, because at the end of the day, I don't want you guys getting screwed over. I'm here for you guys to give you as much information from my perspective as possible for you guys to make the best decision for your dollar. That's what I'm here for. Pong, softer poly, I would highly suggest the Yonex Poly Tour Pro. It's a little bit more on the expensive side, but overall, it's a really good string. So I would suggest trying that. Peppers, let's see. I had a sub and some soup from the shop across the street, which is not, it's local. It's not like a Wendy's or a Taco Bell. I actually didn't have any fast food today. So I know, weird, right? Oh, OC G223. I'm glad that you guys can connect. That's awesome. My voice. Is it because like it's like radio talk kind of voice? What do you mean by that, Sierra? Dwoo0418. I have not tried diadem strings. I have strung diadem strings before. They're obviously polyester. They were rough, but I actually haven't played with it. But on November, I believe 19th, I'm doing kind of like an auction kind of bid on live stream for me to buy packets of tennis string for me to review for you guys. So I highly suggest on November 19th on 7 p.m. Central Time, you guys take a look at that live stream and join in. Have your friends come in too. And you know, I'll have like kind of like a live polling kind of dealio for you guys to say, hey Mark, I want you to review this string. Order it right now. But diadem strings obviously are at least price-wise consumer friendly. I haven't played with it yet, but I'm excited to. Not gonna lie. Joseph Smith, the biggest difference between a 4 and a 4.5, I would say, is two things. One, fitness. Fitness and footwork, I would say, Joseph Smith. Fitness is a huge thing. You know, how many steps are you willing to take in order to get to the ball? How fast are you willing to sprint? How many times are you willing to get winded? And how many times are you willing to let your opponent across the other side of the net in singles blow a winner past you, given you've given it your all? And that's okay. And number two, and this is more on the technical / strategic side of things, 4-5 tennis players are a lot more comfortable finishing at the net more than 4-0. That's my personal opinion, though, in Wisconsin Midwest. Oh man, DeRosa 67. 5 degrees Celsius. That's a bit cold, man. That's a bit cold. test. Okay, good. I gotta figure out this audio thing. It's starting to tick me off. Ella, thank you, man. Thank you, Ella. Glad you could hang out with me. Daniel M. I'm obviously close to finishing the bottoms of this, so the cross tie off. So stay tuned a little bit. I'll show you how to do it. I'll zoom in a little bit for you to see as well. Solenko Outlast 17. Daniel, that's a tough one. So for me, at least at this point in my life, given how I play tennis, I'm looking for good spin potential, good tension maintenance, but I really don't care about durability too much because I have a stringer at home. And comfort's really not a huge thing for me, to be honest, because unless it's Solenko tour bite, which obviously, you need arm surgery for that. My arm is pretty solid all around, so I don't have really a lot of arm problems. I haven't had tennis elbow since I was 19, which is when I switched to the one-hand backhand. That was, holy cow, 11 years ago. So good spin potential, kind of a consistent response even on slight mishits that don't have a huge drop off in power. That's kind of what I look for in tennis strings for what I would choose as a competitive tennis player. But I'm glad that, I could kind of convert you to something cheaper like this Solenko Outlast. I think that's it's a cheap string. It's like, what, $90 a reel? It's like, what? Yeah, at $115 a reel, I mean, it's a cheap string, and it's pretty good, based on my review. So I'm glad I could help you out there. Oh, thanks, Hero. Yeah, it's weird because English is actually my English is actually my second language, because my parents immigrated from the Philippines. So English was actually really hard for me to pick up, especially in school, because I grew up in a private Catholic school, so my education was actually really high quality. But private schools, especially ones that don't have a lot of diversity, which is where I grew up in, they don't have an ESL program, so I kind of had to pick things up as a kid, literally. And I remember in restaurants when I was like in second or third grade. So my mom can speak decent English now, but she definitely still has an accent. And my dad has a very hard time speaking English. And I love my mom and I love my dad, but it's very difficult for like someone in the food industry, or being a waitress or a bartender, to understand someone with an accent, a heavy accent. What kind of food or what kind of drink they want to have, and especially if they're wearing a mask now, given the current situation recently, it's hard. But I remember back then when I was like in second or third grade, me being this tiny Filipino kid that still kind of had a funky way of speaking English. I do remember ordering food and drinks for my parents in restaurants. It was a weird experience, but I'm glad that my specific presentation, and especially in the grand scheme of things, as you put it, serious tennis, I'm glad it helps. I'm glad that you guys enjoy it. Oh, so Fly Guy. So that is one of the things that I did talk about in seriousness with myself and my close circle of friends that I always talk to every time before I pick up a new hobby or pick up actually before I interview. So if I were you guys, so my advice is pick anywhere between 2 to 5 people that you closely trust, that aren't afraid to call you out on your stupid bullshit, and run every serious idea. And by serious, I mean I'm talking about marriage, I'm talking about you know, switching careers or even switching different jobs, run it past them and see what they think. I ran that specific idea, Fly Guy, with those, I think, 4 people. I love them to death. About that idea. I will not take any type of sponsorships from any company that sells or manufactures tennis strings. I'm talking about Yonex, Wilson/Lux Salon, Babolat, Tennis Warehouse, Tennis Express, Solinco, which I'm a huge fan of because they are consumer friendly. Because as soon as I take any money or even any discount from any of those companies, technically I'm biased. And that's not good. I'm here for you guys. I'm here from a consumer perspective. Because if I get Babolat RPM Blast at cost, which is probably at $3 a packet, oh yeah, it's the best string in the tennis world ever at $3 a packet for even regular consumers. But at $20 a packet or whatever it is now for retail, it's kind of BS. It's incredibly expensive. So I'm hoping, Fly Guy, that, you know, me explaining that helps you understand why I will not take any sponsorship or any money from those type of companies, because it will hurt you guys in the long run. Daewoo, not yet. Okay, OCG223. How about this? Donald Young sucks. Oh my god, Donald Young. How would I feel if I had Zverev serve? I would pick up a different sport, Sierra Tennis. Jose P, I'll watch it if I'm at a bar, but I'm not gonna make my way out of it. It's kind of like with the Grand Slams. You know, I'll look at the scoreline if I'm at work. I'll have it on my second or third screen at work. I'll refresh it every now and then just to look at the scoreline, just to see how many double faults Zverev has. And you know how disappointing Grigor Dimitrov is when it comes to Grand Slam results. But if I'm at a bar, you know, if I'm done with tennis for the day and I'm done with work, I'll sit at a local bar around my area and I'll watch some tennis. All right, Ken, have a good one. Walter Ram, I think I fixed the sound. I know it's a huge issue. I gotta figure it out. It might be a motherboard issue. Jan, I haven't tried the Solinco Tour by Diamond Rough, and I'm afraid to because my arm might fall off. Felipe Rodriguez, that is a good prediction. What caused my tennis elbow, Bokai Chow? So when I was 19, when I switched from a two-hander to a one-hander, I had a massive tennis elbow for about a month and a half. Eventually, it kind of went away just because I stopped being a wuss and I kind of toughened up and I developed muscles around that part of my elbow. And then recently, what caused my tennis elbow, or what almost caused my tennis elbow, depending on how you view it, is literally playtesting the Solinco Tour bike. It was such an uncomfortable tennis string, man. It was bad. Max Zagor, I hit at about 15 to 20 hours a week, which is a little bit too much, so I got to ease up on that because my body's starting to break down. Is Daniel M still in the chat? Because he had a question about the last part of the crosses. I'm just trying to figure out if you're still here, Daniel M. Jan, yeah, I do speak Tagalog. It's not as good. It's not as good as it used to be, obviously, because I've been whitewashed, if you know what I mean. So yeah, when my parents come up, they speak to me in Tagalog, and I respond in English, and they understand that. But if I'm at like a Filipino event and I'm just walking through the crowd because I'm like a head above everybody else, basically, I immediately translate like conversations in Tagalog into English in my head. So I could understand Tagalog very easily, but it's hard for me to speak it. Okay, Daniel. Small tennis string companies. That's part of the reason why I made the channel, is because I want these smaller tennis string companies that are very consumer friendly, like the Signum Pro and Solinko to an extent, to be able to have a platform of truth, not just the marketing BS, because these smaller companies can't afford to have their strings sponsored by Rafael Nadal. That's where hopefully I could come in. And it's not necessarily that I made this channel for the stringing companies. I make this channel, I'm making these videos, I'm doing these editings, I'm doing these live streams for the engagement for you guys, because I want you guys to understand that there's better strings out there that aren't $20 a packet. That's the end goal of it, is to have you guys have better decisions, better, well-informed decisions that are based on the opinions of someone that's unbiased and has nothing to lose. And that person is me. Veda Swaram, how do you become a pro tennis player? Be very talented and put in a lot of work. And I know this kind of sounds a little bit biased and kind of snarky, but your family needs to have a lot of money. The Prince comeback, I don't believe it, Felipe Rodriguez. I'm sure you know the Phantom 100 of the Phantom Pro 100P, absolutely fantastic tennis racket. And one of my favorite tennis rackets of all time is the Prince Diablo, which they haven't remade, and they probably should. Wink, wink, Prince. But the background of Prince ever since the late 2000s has been absolutely abysmal, and I hope they change it, but to be honest, I have no faith in them whatsoever. They're, whoever is owning Prince the past decade and a half has been just a bunch of idiots. I have no idea what happened. Andrew H24, that's your opinion, man. I mean, each racket is different. So, you know, the Pure Arrow is a beefy, thick stick and has a lot of spin potential. But for me, it just doesn't have a lot of control. So, you know, that's up to you, man. But when you're playtesting, always have the same string setup. Because keep in mind that the racket is actually the only thing that's carrying the strings. So, you know, when you're testing something, when you're comparing something, try to have all the parameters the same as much as possible. Yeah, PJM 21, I am working out. I'm more doing stretching now because my hips and my IT band and my hamstrings and my knees are starting to give out, especially given I'm hitting with players like Cole at Essential Tennis from that video. I gotta start taking care better of my body. OCG223. So that's one of those things where when it comes to the GOAT, you have to define the metrics, right? So my metric for the greatest male singles tennis player of all time is how many Grand Slams you win, right? I don't care how many finals you make. I don't care how many ATP 1000s you have. The Grand Slam is the Grand Slam count is the only thing that matters. And obviously there's 2 people at the top of that list right now. And to be honest, I personally think Djokovic is going to overtake those 2. And that's perfectly okay. But when someone comes up to me and says LeBron James is the greatest when someone comes up to me and says LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time, I'd say no, or at least not yet. Because Bill Russell is. He has the most NBA rings out there. Is it okay if I grab another drink, guys? Just wondering. Because I'm starting to get a little bit dry. Test? My God. Oh. This is super frustrating, dude. I'm getting pissed. I know, right? But it ruins your guys' like experience. It's really ticking me off. Oh. Okay. All right, Daniel. Just keep it like a normal crossbow. Just got to be a little bit more careful with it, but it's not too bad. Sometimes you can't lead with one cross, and that's okay. You just got to get the job done, right? Hopefully that answers your question, Daniel. Yeah, PJM 21. Yeah, Spanish and Tagalog / Filipino are pretty damn similar. Like, ¿Cómo está? Obviously in Spanish is ¿Cómo está ka in Tagalog. Garaje and garaje are the same in both languages. For better comfort, yeah, I would say so. So Zhao, I would highly suggest for the mains, for the polys, have something not shaped, have something soft. I have used a Gosen Polylon string before, and I was pretty good. It was pretty good. Obviously not the highest quality string in the world, but it was really friggin' cheap, man. So Gosen Polylon is a damn good string, Joseph Batista. What string do I use for competitive play in my E-Zone 98 2020? Right now for competitive play, obviously if I'm not playtesting, I use the Solinco Hyper G 16 gauge at 55 pounds. Yeah, Ram, it was up there. Like, believe it or not, like I'm not BSing. I'm not lying when I said that. Yeah, that was the first time I've ever seen a tennis ball get stuck between the roof and like kind of like that bar that holds up the insulation. It's nuts, man. So I'm glad that you're hitting there, Ram, because obviously it's kind of a private court. But yeah, it's still there. It'll be there forever till the end of time. And also, Happy Diwali. Felipe Rodriguez, I believe so. Because they're run by a bunch of idiots. Iga Swiatek obviously has done a very good job. She's 19, so she's 10 years younger than me, which is freaking nuts. But I believe one person like Iga Swiatek will not save a company like Prince. You're destined to fail. Yes, PJM 21, I do coach part-time. Daniel M, the audio got cut because either my motherboard or my auxiliary sucks. It's working now, which is good. OCG223, build a perfect tennis player to beat the big three without using any of the big three. Dimitrov's one-handed backhand. Dominic Thiem's, I would say forehand. Milos Raonic's serve. How about this? Mikhail Yodra's volleys. That's a blast from the past. And Alex de Minaur's footwork and foot speed. Ethan Wen, yes, I did coach at what is now called the WAC in Heartland, Wisconsin. I believe, let's see. I believe it was late 2014 through early 2016 with my, and I got the job because of a friend of mine who was my high school doubles partner, and I'm not going to say his last name, but his name is Joe. He kind of got me that part-time job. Ethan Wen, did you play there in those times? OCG 223. It wasn't necessarily trash. It was good. It's not perfect, but it was still a decent racket, I would say. PGM 21. Later the better, in my opinion. Did I beat Cole? You're gonna have to watch because I didn't exactly sign an NDR, but it's kind of like an unspoken rule that I won't spoil anything. Like even my close circle of friends don't know what the ending was, so it's one of those things that I'm just gonna keep hush hush. So stay tuned on Monday. I believe the next part is coming out, and I think you'll see the conclusion to that. I have not tried the Hyper G in Gauge 20, Joseph. Or sorry, James Palaracio. Sorry if I said that wrong. But oh my god, I would break that so quickly. Ezo 98. Tamil Beras, it depends because for me there actually is a big difference between a 98 square inch head tennis racket and a 100 square inch tennis racket. Personally, again, this is my opinion, unbiased. I make no money off of this. A 98 square inch tennis head is a hell of a lot easier to swing around. I do not change my tension based on the weather. Bokachao. Andre Taggart. I have not tried the E-Zone Tour. The reason is I want to have stock form light because you can always add weight, but it's unless you're some sort of metaphysical being, you definitely cannot take away weight from a tennis racket. Ethan Wen, I don't remember you. I'm sorry. I know Tim just started working at that point in time, but I don't remember you. I'm sorry. Do you still play tennis? That's awesome that one of my, I guess, former tennis students is in this chat. That's awesome. I don't have the E-Zone 98 DR, unfortunately. I know it's one of the best rackets of all time, but unfortunately I don't. Okay, real question is, do I string my tennis racket with my next tennis racket with the RPM Blast Vanilla 16 gauge or the RPM Blast Rough 16 gauge? Tell me on the chat. Okay. Man. Really frustrating. Am I gonna string with the rough? Is that really what I'm gonna be doing? Yes, Steven Cumberbatch. I am Pinoy. Which is why I have an affinity for drinking and gambling. Oh, by the way, if you're telling me what to string next, either the RPM Blast or RPM Blast Rough, what are you drinking tonight? It is Saturday, so cheers. Look at that pour. Should be a bartender. Andre Taggart, yes, I would recommend that. Kyle Furtek, you and me both, my man. Unfortunately, I don't have any whiskey left or scotch. Had to stick with IPA beers because I'm a man. Ugh, camera 2.